Have you ever woken up and felt like the world no longer made sense? Like the things you've done every day, making tea, turning on the TV, suddenly became puzzles you couldn't solve. This is what a foggy day with dementia feels like. And today, I want to take you inside one of those days, not to scare you, but to help you understand. This is my story. A morning like any other, or so it seems. The morning began just like it always does. The soft hum of the radiator, the early light peeking through the curtains, the gentle warmth of my blanket still clinging to me. I reached for my iPad habit, really then slid my feet into slippers, waiting patiently by the bed. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming, just another day starting quietly in my small corner of the world. I stood up, stretched just a little, and made my way to the bathroom. The shower ran warm, comforting. The steam curled around me like a familiar hug. I washed my hair, reached for the same soap I always use. Everything moved on schedule. No glitches, no hiccups. But somewhere between toweling off and stepping into my robe, I paused. There was a feeling, one I couldn't quite name. At first, it was like a faint hum in the back of my mind, barely noticeable, yet persistent. I stood in the hallway, staring down toward the kitchen, wondering, why did I stop? What was I trying to remember? I shook it off, thinking maybe I was just tired. After all, it had been a long week, a quiet one too, the kind that can leave space for thoughts to get tangled. Still, something didn't feel right. I moved toward the kitchen, trying to push the strange sensation aside. Routine helps, always has. So I made my way to the counter where my tea mug waits faithfully beside the kettle. My hands knew what to do. The familiar steps, the click of the switch, the rattle of the tea bag, the smooth feel of the ceramic cup, they all happened automatically. My body at least was doing just fine, but my mind, it felt like walking through water, heavy, sluggish. As I stirred the honey into my tea, I caught my reflection in the microwave door. I looked fine, a little tired maybe, but behind my eyes, I could see it, the fog. That soft, creeping fog that only I can feel. A gentle invasion, a kind of silent theft. I took my tea and sat in my favorite chair by the window. The birds outside flitted from branch to branch. The squirrels performed their morning dance along the fence line. Life continued business as usual. Yet in my head, it was anything but. The fog hadn't fully settled in yet, but it was coming. I could feel it, like the hush before a storm, like a blanket slowly being pulled over a lamp, dimming everything it touches. And the hardest part, I couldn't explain it, not even to myself, not in a way that makes sense to someone who's never felt it. It's not forgetting names or misplacing keys. It's more like misplacing yourself, losing the thread that connects moment to moment, step to step. And so I sat there, quietly sipping tea, staring out the window, trying to hold on to the pieces of normal, trying to will my brain to stay present. Because for a few more minutes, maybe I could still pretend it was just another morning. When the fog descends, it didn't happen all at once. The fog never does. It starts quietly, so quietly that even I don't notice the moment it arrives. A thought slips away mid-sentence. A plan I made just that morning feels like a distant memory. I reach for something on the counter only to realize I've forgotten what I came for. That morning, it was the pill boxes that did it. I stood in front of them, my hand hovering in the air, unsure where to begin. each box carefully labeled Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'd organized them myself, or maybe one of my daughters had. I couldn't remember. And that right there, that not knowing, was the crack that let the fog in. I stared at the added boxes beside my usual set. New medications, supplements. I didn't know what was what. Instructions I'd once followed confidently now looked like a foreign language. A sinking feeling took hold, fear mixed with frustration. My head throbbed, and not just from the cold I was nursing. This was deeper. A fog thick enough to muffle my thoughts, dull my sense of time, of place, of self. I clutched my tea, grateful that my hands still knew what to do, even when my brain didn't. Somehow, I made it back to the sofa. The iPad glowed softly on the side table. I picked it up, not to check email or scroll the news, but to type. Because when the fog comes, I've learned the only way through it is to document it while I still can. Typing is my lifeline. My fingers move, and the words come, even if the meaning feels distant. It's like my body remembers me better than my brain does. A strange kind of comfort. I try to keep going. I glance at the television, thinking I'll turn on the morning news, hear a familiar voice, something light and routine. But the two remote controls in front of me may as well be ancient artifacts. I press buttons, any buttons, hoping something will spark a memory. Eventually, the screen lights up. Relief, then confusion, then relief again. It's hard to explain this feeling to someone who's never experienced it. The world doesn't disappear. It just shifts, becomes less certain, less grounded. Every decision, every action feels like trying to walk a tightrope in the dark. And the worst part, you know something's wrong. You know you should be able to do this, but you can't. And that knowing, that awareness, is both a curse and a blessing. I glance out the window again. The same tree, the same birds, the same squirrels. Their morning rhythm continues untouched by my confusion. They don't see the fog, but I do. I feel it pressing in, curling around the edges of my mind. And all I can do is wait and hope it lifts. Familiar routines become foreign. There's something deeply comforting about routine. It's the anchor we cling to when everything else feels uncertain. The little steps we take each day, small, quiet, predictable, help us feel in control, like we still belong in our own lives. But on foggy days, even routine turns on me. It started with the remote controls. Normally, I'd switch on the TV without a second thought. The morning news, cheerful chatter, the soft hum of normalcy. It's part of how I start the day. But that morning, I stared at the remotes as if I'd never seen them before. Two black rectangles with buttons that might as well have been written in another language. My fingers hovered, unsure where to begin. I pressed one. The screen blinked. Nothing. Pressed another. Still nothing. A moment of panic rose, irrational, maybe, but very real. Had the TV broken? Was it me? Was I pressing the wrong remote or the right remote in the wrong way? And then finally a flicker. The screen came to life. Relief washed over me like a warm wave, not because I cared what was on, but because I did it. I'd won a small battle, one tiny piece of control reclaimed in a morning that had taken so much from me already. I sat back with my tea, hoping to let the familiar rhythm of the world soothe me. But even that simple comfort came with questions. Had I put sugar in honey did I boil the water properly? I took a sip. It tasted fine. At least, I think it did. That's the thing about foggy days. You doubt everything. Not just the big things, like whether you took your pills, but the small ones too. Did I feed the cat? Did I already have breakfast? Or was I just planning to? It's a constant negotiation between memory and instinct. I looked around the room. My favorite chair, the cozy throw blanket, the photos on the windowsill. All exactly where they should be. But for a moment, they felt unfamiliar, like I'd stepped into someone else's life, one that just happened to look like mine. And that's when it really hit me. Routine isn't just about habit, it's about identity. It's in the way I stir my tea, the way I fold the blanket at night. The rhythm of my day isn't just structure, it's me. And when that rhythm slips away, when the steps I've taken 1,000 times suddenly feel foreign, I lose more than direction. I lose myself. And yet, I keep going. Because sometimes, even when the mind forgets, the body remembers. My hands still know how to hold the cup. My eyes still find comfort in the tree outside the window. My heart still recognizes the face in the photo frame. On foggy days, that's what I hold on to. The tiny echoes of familiarity, the small pieces of me that the fog hasn't taken yet. The lifeline, my iPad, and the power of typing. In the fog, there is one place where I still feel like me. It's not my bed, not the TV, not even the kitchen, where I've made tea for decades. It's my iPad. That small glowing screen has become my sanctuary. Typing has become my voice. I don't know how to explain it fully, but there's something about letting my fingers move across the screen that bypasses the chaos in my mind. My thoughts may swirl in the fog, blurred, jumbled, hard to catch, but somehow, when I place my fingers on the keyboard, the fog parts. Just enough, just long enough. I don't always know what I'm writing. Sometimes I type and read it back later, like I'm reading someone else's diary. And yet I know it came from me. Somewhere deep inside, beyond the confusion, there's still a place where my words live, a place untouched. It's in those moments I feel connected again to the world, to my family, to the version of myself that isn't fading. On the worst days, the iPad is the bridge between the person I was and the person I'm still trying to be. The soft taps on glass become the heartbeat of my morning, a rhythm I can rely on when nothing else makes sense. It's more than just journaling. It's survival. When my thoughts won't hold steady long enough for conversation, I type. When speaking out loud feels like trying to form words underwater, I type. And even when I have nothing to say, when I feel empty or scared, I still type. Because every word I capture is proof that I'm still here. Technology can be cold, yes. But in my world, it's warm. It doesn't judge me when I spell something wrong. It doesn't get frustrated when I forget what I was trying to say. It just waits patiently, ready for me to come back when I'm able. And that patience, so simple, so quiet, is one of the greatest kindnesses I know. My daughters tell me how grateful they are that I still write. They say it helps them understand, helps them feel close, even when we're apart. They don't always know how to talk about the fog, and honestly, neither do I. But my words, raw, messy, honest, give them something to hold on to. And they give me something to hold on to, too. So I keep typing, through the fog, through the fear, through the forgetfulness, because in the space between my trembling thoughts and steady fingers, I still exist. And as long as I can write, I can remember. A battle of the body versus the mind. There's a strange dissonance that happens during a foggy day. My body knows exactly what to do. It moves with practiced ease, boils water, opens cabinets, walks to the window without hesitation. It's as if the muscles remember the life my mind struggles to recall. But inside, everything is a war zone. My head pounds, not from noise or movement, but from the sheer effort of trying to stay present. It's like wading through thick water, trying to reach a memory or a thought that keeps slipping further away. I stood in the kitchen that morning, staring at the rows of pill bottles lined neatly on the counter. My daily box sat open, familiar and reassuring, but next to it, new boxes, unlabeled memories, unclear instructions. My brain screamed for clarity, but none came. Was I supposed to take these together? Had the doctor said, morning or night, why couldn't I remember something so simple? The frustration came first, followed by shame, then fear. What if I took the wrong dose? What if I skipped something important? What if I was the only thing standing between safety and danger? I decided to take only the ones I was sure of, the ones from my daily box. It felt like giving up, but maybe it was being safe. Maybe it was both. I don't know anymore. The pain in my jaw throbbed dull constant. My ear pulsed, my eye ached, all waiting for a hospital appointment I could barely remember scheduling. It was like my body had made plans without telling my brain. And yet, through all of it, I moved. My feet took me to the living room. My hands wrapped around my tea mug. My eyes found the familiar window view. The trees stood steady. The birds kept flying, and I somehow kept going. I think that's what people don't always understand. Just because someone looks fine doesn't mean they are. The body can perform, the smile can appear, the words can come out in the right order. But beneath the surface, there's a battle. One part of me trying desperately to hold on while the other slips further away. It's exhausting, and yet somehow it's also beautiful, because in that battle there's resilience. There's a kind of quiet strength in still trying, even when nothing feels certain. Every step, every sip of tea, every sentence I manage to type it all matters. It's all resistance. It's all me saying I'm still here. So I keep fighting. With my fingers, with my memories, with my breath. Because even on the hardest days, I refuse to let the fog have all of me. Not yet. The isolation within fog. Fog doesn't just cloud the mind. It isolates. Not in the obvious ways. There are still messages from my daughters, the hum of the TV, the world carrying on just beyond my front door. But in here, inside this body, inside this brain, the silence is deafening. There's no one else in the room, yet I feel crowded by confusion, by unanswered questions, by thoughts that start and never finish, and yet so completely, painfully alone. I sit by the window, my faithful companion. The same tree stands tall outside its bare winter branches, trembling just slightly in the breeze. I watch a squirrel scurry along the fence chasing some unseen urgency. It's doing what it's always done. It doesn't know about the fog. It doesn't have to. I envy that. I envy the simplicity of instinct, of routine that doesn't require memory, of mornings that don't need decision-making or second-guessing. Because here I am, wrapped in a blanket tea, cooling in my lap, and I feel like a stranger in my own life. And what's worse, I can't let anyone in. Not because they wouldn't want to help. They would. My daughters would drop everything to be here. My friends would call, bring soup, sit, and chat. But in this fog, conversation feels like noise. Questions are too heavy. Even kindness feels overwhelming. I need quiet. Not because I want to push people away, but because their presence, however loving, can feel like one more thing I have to process, one more layer of confusion to untangle. So I stay alone, not out of bitterness, but because sometimes solitude is the only space where the fog doesn't grow thicker. In the stillness, I can hear my own breathing. I can feel the soft ticking of the clock. I can let the fog pass through me rather than fight it. I've learned that pushing back only tires me faster, but surrender, gentle, patient surrender, can sometimes bring peace. I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. This is not a cry for help. It's simply a moment of truth, a window into what it feels like to sit in a room full of your own memories and not be able to reach them. To know that love surrounds you and yet still feel like you're drifting just out of its reach. But even in this quiet, even in this lonely fog, there is still me, not all of me. Not the sharp, quick-witted version people remember, but a softer version, a quieter one. One who has learned to find comfort in routine, in nature, in the simple miracle of a hot cup of tea and a blinking cursor on a screen. And in this version of me, there is still value. There is still life. There is still something worth holding on to. The voice of loved ones, a thread to hold. The fog makes everything harder, even love. It's not that I stop loving my daughters on days like this. Quite the opposite, really. I hold on to them more tightly, just quietly, from a distance, from behind the veil of my own confusion. That morning, as I sat in stillness, staring out at the bare trees, my iPad lit up. A message, first from Emily, then from Claire. Just 2 simple texts. Morning, Mom. Thinking of you today. Love you, Mama. How are you feeling? I stared at the words longer than I needed to. Not because I didn't understand, but because they cut through like beams of light in a fogged up room. My fingers hovered above the screen. What could I say? That I was lost, that the fog had taken over, that I wasn't sure if I'd brushed my teeth, but I'd typed 3 pages I barely remembered. Instead, I replied simply, a bit foggy, but still here. I love you too. They understood. They always do. It must be hard for them watching from the outside, knowing they can't fix it, knowing their mother is slowly drifting away from the woman she once was. And yet they never make me feel broken, never make me feel like a burden. Their love has softened, grown quieter, but stronger too. It's in the way they text at the same time every morning. It's in the way they don't ask too many questions on days when I don't reply right away. It's in the patience of their pauses, in their knowing. I've come to think of their messages as threads thin, yes, but golden, unbreakable. No matter how far the fog pulls me inward, their words reach me. They remind me I'm not forgotten. I'm not invisible. I'm still someone's mom, still someone's person. Even when I'm unsure of where I am, they remind me who I am. Sometimes when the fog is thickest, I'll go back and read old messages, reread birthday cards, listen to voicemails, not to remember facts, but to remember love. Love, after all, is the one thing this illness hasn't taken from me, and perhaps never will. So I hold on to their voices, Their laughter, their gentle teasing, the way they still say, "Hi, Mama," like I'm 100% present, even when I'm not. That tone, it anchors me. Because when words fail, when memory fades, when even my own face in the mirror feels unfamiliar, love does not. Love stays. Love whispers through the fog, and for now, that is enough. When time disappears, time becomes slippery when you live with dementia. It doesn't just move slower or faster, it dissolves. One moment, you're pouring a second cup of tea. The next, you're wondering if you ever had the first. An hour can vanish without warning, and entire afternoons can feel like they've folded in on themselves. That day, as I sat with the soft murmur of the television in the background, I stared at the screen of my iPad. 5 reminders blinked gently at me, things I had scheduled days before. Simple tasks: pay a bill, call the pharmacy, water the plants. But even reading them felt like wading through wet sand. I knew what each word meant. I understood each sentence, but my brain couldn't string them together into action. They weren't just tasks anymore. They were barriers, walls I didn't have the strength to climb, so I pushed them aside. Later, I told myself, but deep down, I knew I might not come back to them. Not today. And then came the emails. Ping, ping, ping. I opened one, read it twice, started typing a reply, and halfway through, I forgot what I was responding to. I backtracked, reread, and even that felt like chasing smoke. The words had scattered somewhere out of reach, so I closed the app and stared, not in sadness, at least not in that moment, but in surrender. I gave in to the quiet, to the stillness, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. There was no energy left to chase the timeline of the day. It's a strange thing when time disappears. You no longer live through your day, but inside it, trapped in pockets of sound and light and routine that don't always connect. There's no arc, no beginning, middle, or end. Just now and now and now. I reached for my solitaire game, my old standby. The cards flipped smoothly across the screen, each move familiar, calming. I wasn't playing to win. I wasn't even keeping track. I was just present. For the first time that morning, maybe the whole day, I didn't feel like I was failing. Blackjack needs red 10. That was enough. Because sometimes, when everything else is spinning, that one tiny rule is an anchor. One small certainty in a sea of confusion. I think that's what I fear the most, not forgetting people or places, but losing the rhythm of time itself. Losing the sense that today is today, that this moment belongs where it does not scattered among memories like fallen leaves. But then the radiator clicks on. The light shifts through the window, and for one brief, beautiful second, I remember what time feels like. I close my eyes, hold my breath, and let that second stretch as long as it will last. Because even when time disappears, sometimes if you're lucky, you get a moment back, and that for now is enough. Awakening from the battle, exhausted but grateful. I must have fallen asleep. I don't remember when or how, just that. At some point my body gave in. Maybe it was the weight of the fog. Maybe it was my mind retreating, letting my limbs take over, finally asking for peace. When I opened my eyes, the room was dark, not pitch black, just dim. The kind of light that comes before evening fully arrives, cool, soft, forgiving. The radiator had kicked in, clicking, and humming its quiet rhythm. The scent of my tea, now cold, still lingered in the air. The television buzzed gently from the next room, a faint echo of someone else's world still turning. And for the first time all day, I felt a little clearer, not fully, not sharply, but enough to notice the outline of the trees outside against the darkening sky. Enough to know where I was, what day it probably was, and that I had made it through the worst. I sat up slowly, my joints stiff, my head heavy, like it had been filled with fog-soaked cotton. The fatigue was overwhelming, not the kind a nap can fix, but the kind that settles in your bones after a long, invisible battle. I didn't win anything, but I had survived, and that in this world means more than people realize. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in hours, I trusted it. Trusted that I was back in my own skin, in my own chair, in the rhythm of my own home. That matters. That counts. There's something beautiful about returning to yourself after being lost. It's quiet beauty, humble, unremarkable to anyone watching from the outside. But to me, it felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Not blinding, just warm enough to say, "You're still here." My throat was dry, my head ached, my muscles tender, but I was grateful. Grateful for the tree outside my window that hadn't moved. Grateful for the cup in my hand, even if the tea was cold. Grateful for the tiny blinking light on my iPad. Grateful that I could type these words even now. That gratitude doesn't erase the fog. It doesn't make it less terrifying, but it gives me something stronger to hold on to when it returns, which it always will. It reminds me that every time I come back, there's still a part of me waiting, still a version of myself worth coming back to. So I whisper a quiet thank you to no one in particular, to everything in general, and I begin again with a deep breath, a warm blanket, and of course, another cup of tea. Because even after the storm, the ritual remains, and in that ritual, I remember reflections on the fog and hope for clarity. As I sit here, now typing these final words, the fog has lifted, not completely, but enough. Enough for me to look back on the day and piece it together like a puzzle. Some corners are still missing. Some sections feel like they belong to someone else's life. But I remember enough to know that I made it through. That matters. Reading what I wrote earlier, honestly, it's a little strange. Some paragraphs feel foreign, like I'm hearing my own voice through a wall. I vaguely remember the morning. I remember falling asleep. I remember waking up. But the middle is a mystery. And yet, somehow, it's still me. That's the paradox of dementia. You're losing yourself while still being deeply aware that it's happening. You're forgetting, but you remember enough to feel the ache. You fade, but not all at once. There's a lesson in that, not just for me, but maybe for anyone who's listening. We all have foggy days, days when we lose direction, when our thoughts get tangled, when time doesn't make sense. Maybe not in the same way, but still. The disorientation, the fear, the isolation, it's something more people carry than we think. So if you're here reading this, whether you live with dementia, care for someone who does, or you're simply curious, thank you. Thank you for holding this space with me, for listening, for witnessing. Because even if I forget who read these words tomorrow, I know right now that they matter. I matter. And I want to leave you with this. There will be more fog. There always is. but there will also be light through the trees in the kindness of strangers, in the sound of a loved one's voice, or even in the soft tap of your own fingers finding their way back to the words. Don't be afraid to pause, to rest, to wait for the clarity that always somehow finds its way through. And if you love someone walking through the fog, let your voice be their thread. You don't need the perfect words, just presence, just patience, because the fog may come and go, but love stays, always. To those living with dementia, you're not broken, you're not alone, and even on the foggiest days, there are pieces of you still shining through. To families and caregivers, thank you for your patience, your presence, and your love, even when we can't say the words. You are our lighthouse in the mist. If this story touched you, please leave a comment, share your experience, or just say hi. And if you want more stories from the inside, don't forget to subscribe. We're in this together. If this story resonated with you, even just a little, leave a comment. Tell me how you're doing, or simply say hello. Sometimes knowing someone out there understands makes all the difference. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, feel free to subscribe. Not because you have to, but because you want to stay connected. You're not alone.